Something wild happened last week. Republican heavyweights and members of Trump's cabinet completely lost it, live on national TV. And no, this wasn't just a bad look. It was a full-on unraveling when a brutal jobs report hit the headlines. The Bureau of Labor Statistics dropped the bomb. In July alone, the U.S. lost 112,000 jobs. And those so-called booming numbers from May and June? Turns out, they were smoke and mirrors. Over 200,000 of those jobs never existed. For months, Trump's team had been shouting about record job growth. But the numbers they were celebrating were either rushed, wrong, or just made up.
While we could have seen better jobs numbers, right now we're seeing American workers are being put first. Native-born workers account for all of the job growth, and that's key.
And when the truth landed, it was a mess. Rather than taking responsibility, these folks panicked. On camera, they deflected, stumbled, and threw out excuses that made no sense. These are the same people who've been chanting jobs, 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 while defending a policy agenda that's been dragging the economy backward. Watching them try to spin it was like watching someone slip on a banana peel in slow motion. Awkward, clumsy, and hard to look away from. And this is just the start. We're going to break it all down, every excuse, every contradiction, every moment that exposed the cracks in their story. So make sure you're subscribed, stay locked in, and watch this all the way through. Because what just happened? It says a lot more than they want you to know.
President Trump doubling down on his decision to fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics after Friday's weak jobs report showed a massive downward revision for May and for June.
As the job numbers hit the wires, Republican Senators Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, and JD Vance were already lined up for their usual appearances on Fox, OAN, and Newsmax. What they expected to be a victory lap quickly spiraled into a full-blown scramble. The contradiction started almost immediately. Hawley blamed the numbers on deep state sabotage. Minutes later, Vance shrugged them off as seasonal noise. Then came Cruz with the wildest spin yet, saying the job losses were actually a good thing because apparently Americans are now too rich to work. Even Senator Kennedy joined the circus, trying to twist the facts into something that sounded halfway optimistic.
Unemployment stayed steady at 4.2%. We had job growth last month, annualized about 3%.
Let's be honest, the labor market in 2025 is in trouble. And while Trump and his allies smile for the cameras, patting themselves on the back, the data tells a very different story. If you only followed the press conferences, you'd think the economy was thriving. But the deeper you look, the more it unravels. Back in May and June, the White House made a lot of noise about so-called job gains. It made headlines. Fox News pushed nonstop coverage celebrating a recovery. But now the revisions are in, and the numbers don't hold up. Over 140,000 of those jobs never existed. They were either misreported or pushed out too early without proper review. The correction was so dramatic, even Republican senators looked stunned when it aired live. And that's just the surface. Trump's big pitch was that tariffs would bring jobs back, that they'd revive American manufacturing, punish China, and rebuild industries. But that's not what's happening. Plants aren't reopening. They're shutting down. And the damage is hitting states he often touts as success stories. Take Michigan. Since the new tariffs went into effect in April, the state has lost over 24,000 manufacturing jobs. That's not just an economic stat. It means families struggling to pay rent, layoffs in the auto sector, and rising stress across entire communities. And it's not isolated. Ohio, Pennsylvania, and parts of the South are feeling the same pressure. Meanwhile, inflation hasn't eased. The cost of living keeps climbing. Businesses hit by tariffs are raising prices just to stay afloat. Hiring has slowed to a crawl, and many companies are actively cutting back. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce didn't mince words. They called this the most economically damaging round of tariffs in modern history. But on TV, Trump officials are still insisting everything's great. The latest jobs report shows declines across construction, logistics, and small business hiring. And leaked memos from the Fed are blunt. The labor market isn't bouncing back. It's losing momentum. Trump's answer? More tariffs, more tax breaks for the wealthy, more posturing for the cameras. And while this plays out like theater in DC, the people feeling the impact are the ones trying to keep their jobs, pay their bills, and hold things together. The headlines might be about numbers, but what's happening now is being felt in kitchens, workplaces, and neighborhoods all over the country. The immigration crackdown isn't easing the job crisis, it's making it worse. Trump's enforcement agenda was billed as a way to protect American jobs. But since the start of 2025, it's had the opposite effect. Mass deportations and aggressive ICE raids have forced hundreds of thousands of foreign-born workers out of the labor force. The drop is estimated at 1.7 million, many from sectors that depend on them to function. Meanwhile, job growth among US-born workers has barely moved. Take agriculture. Roughly 40% of US farm workers are undocumented, and in California, it's over 75%, around 1.2 million people. With raids sweeping farms, many workers have stopped showing up. Some operations lost half their crews overnight. Crops are rotting. Harvests are stalling. Manuel Cunha Jr., head of the Nisei Farmers League, said it best. If you took away his workforce, you wouldn't eat. The country will stop, literally stop. Farmers are pleading for expanded visa programs, but with no action, seasons are slipping away. The impact doesn't end there. Restaurants, hotels, and meatpacking plants, where nearly a quarter of workers are foreign-born, are struggling. Kitchens are quiet. Hotels are understaffed. Construction sites are losing skilled tradespeople. Childcare centers are scaling back. Business leaders have warned the SEC about labor shortages, hiring freezes, and economic slowdowns. It's also reshaping consumer behavior. Undocumented families are avoiding public places, fearful of being targeted. Major chains like Walgreens, Home Depot, and Coca-Cola report sharp drops in Hispanic foot traffic, hitting local sales hard. Experts estimate up to 6 million jobs could be at risk across industries that either employ immigrants directly or rely on the services they support. Over 40 major U.S. companies have raised red flags, citing disruptions in agriculture, tech, construction, and hospitality, and warning of broader risks, from shrinking demand to rising recession chances. Even Trump has acknowledged the damage. On Truth Social, he admitted the deportations were hurting farms and hotels and hinted that changes are coming. Secretary of Labor Lori Chavez didn't waste a second defending the administration. Just hours after the latest jobs report dropped, she fired off a tweet declaring that under Trump, the U.S. economy is booming and American workers will prosper. But here's the problem. Those numbers she's brushing off come directly from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the agency under her own department. This isn't spin. It's official government data.
The labor secretary posted on X, and she says this. I want to read this to you. Quote, "I support the president's decision to replace Biden commissioner."
Later on MSNBC, Chavez doubled down. She claimed the job losses were exaggerated by Democratic governors who, according to her, had deliberately sabotaged their own economies. But the facts don't back her up. The steepest job declines weren't in blue states. They showed up in deep red Republican strongholds: Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama. And here's what really undercuts her defense. States that refused to raise the minimum wage or expand Medicaid saw much weaker job growth than those that did. That's not politics. It's policy performance. Despite that, the messaging machine kicked into gear. Within a day of the report, media allies started casting doubt on the numbers. Fox Business ran a segment titled "Recession?" What recession? Even as the Dow was tanking by 700 points in real time, it was like watching two separate realities. At the same time, Trump officials began pointing to household survey data, trying to paint a rosier picture. But economists quickly pushed back. That data set is unstable, often outdated, and not meant to stand on its own. It's one piece of the puzzle, nothing more. Independent trackers across the board are showing the same thing. The job market is losing ground. Tariffs have driven up costs. Immigration crackdowns have hollowed out key labor sectors. And yet, the administration keeps clinging to cherry-picked numbers and vague claims. This isn't just about being wrong. They've seen the real data, they know what's happening, and they're choosing to say otherwise. Donald Trump has never just used numbers. He's reshaped them to tell the story he wants. This goes back to his first term, when he regularly took credit for economic trends that had started under President Obama. Job growth, falling unemployment, and the post-recession recovery were already underway. But Trump claimed them as his own, with flashy charts and bold slogans. Some numbers were accurate, but the context was stripped away. It was theater, not policy. In 2018, his Commerce Department delayed the release of trade deficit data that showed his tariffs were backfiring. The trade gap was widening, not shrinking. That delay wasn't bureaucratic, it was intentional. That same year, the definition of manufacturing jobs was expanded to include warehousing, packaging, and delivery. Important roles, yes, but they don't reflect actual production. It made factory job growth look stronger than it was, even as plants continued shutting down or relocating. Now, in his second term, the data manipulation has grown bolder. Watchdog groups are sounding alarms over irregularities in BLS reports. Trump allies have reportedly pressured the agency to adjust how job losses and part-time gigs are classified. Under the new formula, someone who lost a full-time job but is now driving for Uber still counts as employed. That doesn't show economic strength. It hides the losses. The administration also touts small monthly job gains, many from temporary or seasonal work, as signs of progress. But behind the headlines, labor force participation is down. Wages are flat. Job insecurity is growing. Millions have stopped looking altogether. On the surface, the reports may seem solid, but scratch beneath that surface, and the cracks show. This isn't about misunderstanding the data. It's about rewriting it. The numbers are being polished to fit a message, while real struggles are ignored. For Trump, it's not about solving problems. It's about selling the illusion that none exists. While political headlines dominate the news, it's everyday people who are paying the price. 2025 was supposed to be the year things turned around. That was Trump's message. On the trail, in interviews, and in his jobs revival speech back in January. But by August, the numbers tell a very different story. Major companies in tech, manufacturing, retail, and transportation are cutting jobs fast. Amazon just laid off another 14,000 workers, citing efficiency restructuring. Ford and General Motors, once expected to benefit from tariffs, are downsizing due to supply shortages and collapsing exports. Over 40% of U.S. manufacturing firms have paused hiring or started letting people go. Even healthcare, a sector often considered recession-proof, is under pressure. Regional hospital networks in Ohio, Wisconsin, and Georgia have trimmed staff by up to 10% after federal funding dried up. And in media, CNN, BuzzFeed News, and Vice all announced layoffs just in Q2. This isn't random, it's a result of long-building strain. Trump's tariff war has pushed up costs across industries. Small manufacturers can't afford critical parts. Retailers are tangled in delays and price hikes. Now, employers are saying what they used to whisper: we can't keep staff when demand is falling. Behind the press releases and upbeat interviews is a harsher reality. Jobs are vanishing. Families are draining savings. Mortgage delinquencies are rising. Job security is slipping away. And yet, over the weekend, Trump blamed Biden holdovers and Marxist economists on X for allegedly rigging the numbers. But it's his second term. There are no holdovers. Every agency is staffed by his own appointees. It's textbook deflection. Say anything, blame anyone, just keep attention away from the real damage. And unfortunately, some still believe it. Markets don't. After the latest jobs report, stocks fell. Treasury yields jumped as stagflation fears took hold. Goldman Sachs issued a stark warning about Trump-induced policy drag. Even the Wall Street Journal, usually friendly territory, signaled concern about a looming recession. And still, no shift from the White House, no course correction, just more deflection, more noise, more spin. The layoffs of 2025 aren't just statistics. They point to something deeper. The economy isn't stable, and all the slogans in the world won't hold it together. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, because this isn't over. Make sure you're subscribed and don't miss what's coming next.